We all know Arceus as the god of all Pokemon, but what if he himself was created as well, by an even higher unknown entity? Well, today we're going to take a look at that idea and see it being executed in the beautiful fan game that is Pokemon Infinity. This fan game offers you so much, from an entire new region named Ego, which is a home to more than 100 new Fakemon, including regional forms, new evolutions, and original designs. We've got an entire new storyline that's fully original with characters that you have never seen before. The level cap in the post-game has also been increased to over 150, which is just insane to think about. And to top it all off, the game looks absolutely gorgeous with over 650 new battle animations and graphics that will make your eyes glow. So join me through my adventure of Pokemon Infinity as we uncover everything it has to offer. Our story starts off with a man shouting at us to wake up. After some slaps in our face, we eventually stand up and see that we're inside of Genesis Forest, an unknown place to us as we're suffering from amnesia and have no recollection of what happened before any of this. We do get greeted by two people, an old man and a girl that seems to be our age. We learn that one of them is this region's professor, Wormwood, and the other is his assistant, Lucy. They bring us to a nearby town where we can rest up, but when we ultimately wake up again, we see that there's nobody around except for a note that was left on the table. It's a note from Wormwood saying that I should come to his lab so we can learn more about what happened to us. So we go outside and meet Lucy along the way, who's eager to escort me to the lab, but once we arrive, we go straight to Wormwood to talk to him. He takes me outside and says that he has met countless people on this island from every single origin. Trainers, gym leaders, regular farmers, basically everybody on this island is known by him. Ego is also a very small region, so everybody seems to know everybody. That's why it's weird that nobody knows who I am, which ponders the question of how we got here in the first place. We arrived in a forest, which means we didn't come from the sea, and there was no one else in the vicinity when I was found. He asks us if we remember what a Pokemon is, to which we answer yes, which is good because now we can get our own starter Pokemon so we can traverse the island and find out what happened to us. We get the choice between 3 new regional starters: Squirtle the Raincloud Pokemon, a flying water type; Charmander the Flare Lizard Pokemon, which is a fire dragon type; and lastly the Cactus Bulb Pokemon Bulbasaur, a rock poison type. I thought all 3 of these designs were perfect, but I went with Charmander because I wanted to see what an actual Dragon Charizard would look like. Delighted with my choice, I head back to Wormwood, who urges me to go and find an old colleague of his. This man's name is Professor Thorn, and he lives in his own made lab inside of a lighthouse on top of a nearby hill. He's one of the smartest people in the world, so he might be able to help us with our little problem. But before we visit him, I headed upstairs where there was a computer that allows you to put in passwords. If you just type in password, you'll be able to unlock every type of challenge option. I personally only turned on the level cap option and then headed out. On my travels, I met with a Pokemon trainer named Teal, who's also going to get his first Pokemon from Professor Wormwood, so he'll be serving as my rival, with the goal of becoming the strongest trainer in the entire region. Once our introduction with each other was done, I headed to Moonstone Path, where we found 2 new Pokemon: Calf Pint, the pre-evolution of Miltank, who's not only super cute but also decently strong for such a little cow, and a new regional form of Hoot Hoot, which turned out to be a dark flying type. And because he has a moon on his head, I named him Moon Knight because of my Marvel Rivals addiction. With our team strengthened, we moved on and reached Merchant's Ridge, a place where you can buy all sorts of goodies, but more importantly for us, we ran into Lucy again, who hands me an old gadget that Wormwood wants me to give to Thorn. It's a broken old thing, so he thinks that the professor will be able to repair it and maybe get some use out of it. We also learned that Thorn set up the entire PC system on this island, so if we capture too many Pokemon, they will be sent to him. As I marched on, I got bitten in the ass by a Poochyena, who mistook it for a nice slice of meat jerky. With pain in the buttocks, we reached our next destination, Searich Town, a peaceful place with not too much going on besides one meetup with a legendary trainer. His name is Donnie, and he exclusively trains shiny Pokemon. He tells us that the odds of us running into one here is about 1 in 3,000, so we'll probably not see too many of them. He doesn't have time to hang around with me, however, however, because he needs to go back on that shiny hunt, so we leave each other and I go to Stone Dust Trail, where our next Pokemon waited for us, a regional form of Spearow that's incredibly dangerous as it's a fighting dark type that will claw your eyes out. Just as we're done capturing this, we hear some panting in the background and see that it's Teal who has been trying to follow us. She rocks 2 Pokemon already, a Starly and that Squirtle she just got. Both of them got their eardrums blasted by my Hoot Hoots echoing voices though, so this battle was over quickly. But I bet this won't be the last we'll be seeing from her. Our route then leads us to the top of Stone Dust Peak, where we finally get introduced to the famous Professor Thorn. He's confident that if anyone is going to be able to help me with finding out my mysterious origins, it's going to be him, because he's the smartest man alive. He already has a couple of theories, but first he needs to do a diagnostic scan of our brain and other vitals to see if he can find out anything from them. So we head inside of his laboratory and go to the basement. We see a ton of weird equipment here that looks very futuristic, so I think he has the tools to find out where we came from. We also hand him the old gadget that Professor Wormwood gave us, which he's going to try and repair. But first we need to step into this machine so we can get scanned. Unfortunately, he sees that there's something wrong with one of his sonar panels that's supposed to be powering this device. He sends us outside so we can go and check it out, and we see that it's a weird looking trainer that's trying to sabotage it. After confronting and beating him up in a Pokemon battle, we learn that he's a member of Team Fate. But we don't learn anything else, as he wasn't even sure himself why he was disabling this. He's just following his boss's orders. Very weird, but we've dealt with it, so let's head back to the lab. Thorn doesn't seem to know Team Fate either, and just sees them as vandals that are messing with his equipment. But with the problem out of the way, we can go and do the scan. We step inside of the machine and get transported into our own memory, where we see a bed hooked up to a ton of monitors. The weird thing is that there's nothing else around here except for some broken pillars and a shadowy figure that says,
"I'm sorry, I cannot help you."
After I lay down in this bed, we get transported back to the professor, and after we tell him everything, he says that that's a very odd dream because we were only in there for 10 seconds. This means there's no way we could have fallen into the correct sleep cycle fast enough to even start dreaming. He swipes it away as probably just a reaction on the scan we just did, but the brain can indeed make different realities like in a dream, which might feel very real, but there is definitely a difference between what our brain projects and what's actual reality. He's going to study this phenomenon more, and we need to go out to Echo Rock Town to get some arcanium ore so he can repair the gadget Professor Wormwood gave us. Because we don't have anything better to do, we comply and go on this quest. But along the way, we found many more friends. The first of which was the Prevolution of Skarmory R-Bird, a useful Steel Normal type that is going to sweep through the early game with me. Oh, and I also got myself a Charmeleon that looks very long and a little bit wonky, which made me even more excited for Charizard, as this refers to a Chinese dragon. But we're going too fast here. Let's live in the moment and talk to Donnie again. He's also heading to Echo Rock Town, but we need to go through a cave in order to reach it, and he's afraid of caves. So he'll be taking a different path while we have to go and deliver his blended berry juice to his grandma. We promise him this task will be fulfilled without any problems, but first we head to the local trick house to complete a maze and claim a pretty cool chest. These gave us some supplies for this dangerous journey through the cave, but this does mean we're all set to go. Without Flash, the cave wasn't the easiest to get through, but we did eventually make it to the end. On our introduction to Echo Rock Town, we see that the Koros Festival is currently going on, so the entire town is flooded. This festival is always being held to honor the legendary god of space, Palkia, and after talking to some of the miners around here, we learned that one of them has an ore, but he won't give it to us until we get our first gym badge. And how do we do that? Well, we have to beat Geralt, one of the Ego Council members. There's 5 of these around the region, and we're going to have to eventually beat all of them, but this one is definitely going to be the easiest. But we can't challenge him yet, as Lucy has also arrived in this town. She came here to check out the festival, which is running to its end, and because she ran into me here anyway, she decides to give me the Fly HM. After we get our first gym badge, we can already use it, which makes traversal of the region a lot quicker. We then say our goodbyes, and I check out the rest of the festival myself, as I pay homage at the statue of Palkia, throw some money into a well, and listen to the lovely tunes that are being spread spread through the air. I also end up capturing a local Pokemon named Koki Seed, a grass fighting type that I evolved into Koki Pound, and Hoot Hoot also became bigger as it turned into Noctowl. We then go up to Geralt, who's finally ready for a battle, but he doesn't have his full team ready. He just has a couple of new friends that he just captured with him, but we're good with that, as I will always take an easy gym badge. My Charmeleon starts spamming nostril flares to immediately burn up his Shinx and Nidorina. As I start taking too much damage, I swap into Arbor to deal with his last Pokemon Fearow, which hands me the win as well as the Quill badge. He also urges me to come back to him in Haysport City if we want a real battle, and when the festivities end here, Howlett, the second council member, will go back to his duties. Unfortunately, we won't be able to challenge him now, so we grab our piece of ore from the miner and fly back to Thorn's lab. He's proud that we were able to get a gym badge as well as the ore, but he has good and bad news. The good news is that he finished repairing the old gadget, which was an EXP router to give my entire team experience to make grinding a lot easier. The bad news is that he needs a little more time than expected to figure out what's going on with me. He's eliminated a lot of answers and is quickly honing in on what it could actually be. Luckily, while he's going to figure this out, he has one more errand for me to run. He's been invited to be a guest at the Safari Zone grand opening in Amberfield Town because he made a solar panel for them. However, he doesn't have any time nor interest to go, so he wants me to deliver a letter to the warden, which will state that we'll be going instead of him. So we go back to Professor Wormwood's Hayfield Town and take the Hayfield path to try and reach our destination. This is where we run into Teal again, who's once again ready for a battle. She has added a Ponyta to the team, which she starts off with. My Charmeleon uses his nails to scratch it out of here though. Calfbind then deals with her evolved Wartortle by spamming stomps, and Arbor shows that size doesn't matter as he Metal Claws his way through Staravia. She takes the defeat very well and says that she's going to grab her first gym badge in Echo Rock Town 2, which clears the path for us, only for it to get blocked again by a regional form of Marill, who's now an angry rock fighting type, so we capture it easily, but also run into a little fire goat named Chargo, a pure fire type that will eventually turn into a psychic fire steed. That moment isn't here yet, however, but we do grab another new team member in Totodile, who's now a water poison type that's ready to shred. I immediately evolve it into Croconaw and make it even more menacing, and after doing another upgrade into Burnaram, we find ourselves to the place where it all started. Genesis Forest. Something very weird is happening though. On the exact place where we woke up, we see Team Fate and their boss. They're looking for the elusive Celebi to try and get its time-distorting abilities to give them the upper hand. We don't know why and what they're going to do with that power, but it can't be any good. They move out for their search and we try to follow them but lose them in the forest quickly. But we do find something else, a new Pokemon named Darpole who evolves into Brutoad, a water dark type who looks like he's ready to do some mischievous stuff. We finally make our way out of the forest and into the Palkia Trail. That's where I shake a tree to unlock another new Pokemon named Scalarva, a dragon bug type that's going to be very strong for us in the future. I also tracked down a regional form of Magnemite that got totally overgrown with grass and vines, turning him into a grass steel type just like the overpowered Ferrothorn. I also evolved these two immediately into Magneton and Dragalis the Cocoon, and because the level cap was 30, I also got my Croconaw up to a Fraligator, and I already know that his jaws will bite through many foes. A cemetery also crossed our path, where we met up with some people that are doing the Palkia trial. They've basically been selected by the people of Echo Rock Town to go play the Azure Flute at Palkia's temple to summon him and complete a ritual. A very noble mission statement that will probably never go wrong. Anyway, let's go back to Echo Rock Town and enter the local gym. That's where we find not only the gym leader but also Teal, who just got his own gym badge. She'll be staying around for me as moral support so we can also get ours. So I complete the puzzles easily and make it to Howlett, who shares an awful lot with the appearance of Wolverine if you ask me. But we're not going to let him dig his claws into us, so let's start off by wiping his team, shall we? And I think the Wolverine similarities are absolutely on the spot because every single one of his team team members has sharp claws. Luckily for me, my Freligator's teeth are sharper, as we use venom swipes, cross chops, and water pulses to take down his Scyther, Pawniard, Weavile, and Zangoose, allowing me to receive the Ren badge and the ability to cut down tiny trees, because of course, what else would Wolverine do in a Pokemon game? Because we can now cut down trees, I was able to reach a new area where we find a regional form of Oddish, a ghost poison type that's definitely seen better days. But our mission wasn't over yet, we still had to make it to the Safari Zone. So I followed the rolling trail, which led me to a Slacking that was guarding a chest. By using my brain power, I was able to overcome his giant muscles and claim the chest as my own. Not long after, I arrived at the Safari Zone and handed over the letter to the warden. He's not surprised to see that Thorn is not coming because he isn't really a person that goes outside a lot. He does encourage me to enjoy the Safari Zone for myself, but unfortunately most of the places are cut off because it's so busy, so I decided to just leave and come back when it was less crowded. I fly back to Thorn's lab, who has good news. He knows that we're going to be able to figure this out if I step into the machine one more time. So I oil myself up and get in there without hesitation. This time we see the same bed, but we're in a different room. We also see the same shadow as before, who now says,
It's only a matter of time, all we can do is wait.
But then out of nowhere, a telephone starts ringing in the distance. When we pick up, the voice on the other line only says one thing:
Come back home.
This happens a couple more times, and every time we pick up, a new illusion of a Pokemon shows up out of nowhere. First, it's a Gengar. When you pick the phone up again after this, the voice on the other side says,
This isn't supposed to happen to you.
This then spawns in a Duskull, but the phone starts ringing again, saying that
This can't last much longer.
the final silhouette we see is a Banette before we lay back down in the bed and get transported back to Thorn. He says that he knows what happened to us. It's pretty clear actually. There's no evidence of us falling from a plane or having sustained any injuries. Nobody has ever seen me before, and I'm suffering from amnesia. And there's no way I floated my way over here, which means there is no logical or physical way for me to have gotten here. So he started looking at different perspectives, like powers of specific Pokemon. Because we woke up so close to a Celebi shrine, he thinks that this Pokemon took me through time from a different universe and planted me here. He knows this because he scanned my body, and it's made up out of elements that are not discovered in this universe yet. But not all is lost. He has a plan to help us get back home, but we need some time in order to process it. We decide to sleep over this for a night and head back outside to see Thorn. He's going to be able to send us back with the machine we just stepped into. But in order to do that, we're going to be needing the correct energy source. This is going to have to come from the space-time deities Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina. We're not even going to have to capture these Pokemon, we just need to harness a small amount of their energy so that we can power up the machine and send me back. So he wants me to go to the 3 temples of these 3 legendary beings to try and collect some shards that still harness some of their power so we can use those. And we're in luck because one of these 3 is very close by, the Koros Temple. That's where Palkia normally gets summoned with the festival and all that. And because the caravan we found earlier is going there already to summon Palkia, this is just going to help our cause because that's going to cause a huge surge of energy to blast through that area so we can easily grab one of the shards. But unfortunately for us, we're not going to be able to reach it yet, as we'll need the ability to smash rocks, which means we'll have to make our way to the Dunestone Oasis first so we can start clearing the path. The only way for us to get there is through Amber Trial, so I grab my backpack and go on the way. Not even 2 seconds into my hiking session and we already run into Teal. She's already become a lot stronger since last time we faced her and wants to test out her new team. And who are we to say no to something like that? She now rocks a Burnaram, which gets water pulsed by Freligator easily. Staraptor and Rapidash also can't handle the water pressure, and with the combined power of Magneton and Moon Knight, Blastoise, the god of clouds, doesn't stand a chance either. I then put the final Pokemon Snorlax to sleep with a Hypnosis and spam Air Slashes with Noctowl and Bites with Charmeleon to take him out and win another battle against Teal. As always, she's a great sport, saying that defeat motivates her, and she heads off to the Safari Zone, leaving us alone. We use this alone time to do some grinding and evolve our Charmeleon into Charizard, the Chinese dragon, who actually reminded me a lot of that old cartoon called Jake Lung, the American Dragon, which gave me a much needed nostalgia rush. I also evolved Oddish into Gloom, who looks even sadder, and Brutoad into the giant with the best name ever, God Frogger. With our team strengthened, I made it to the other part of Genesis Forest that led me into another meeting with Lucy, and she's got a couple more gifts of Wormwood from me. One of them is the item finder, but the second one is a lot more interesting. It's a card game called Triple Triad, and basically how it works is you've got this board of 9 places and you want your number of your Pokemon to be higher than the opponent's. If it ends up being higher, that card gets converted to yours, which scores you extra points, and who has the most points in the end wins the game. I didn't spend much time playing this myself, but did think it was a nice little addition. After I played a couple of games, I arrived at the Haysport suburbs, a very nice neighborhood where some kids invited me to play hide and seek with them. Little did they know that they just invited the best seeker in the world to their game. I didn't only find all 3 of the kids in under 5 minutes, I also found a golden dog, who wasn't of any significance, but I just thought a gold dog was cool. As a reward for finding them, we got some Corsola Cola and a Gorochu as one of my Pokemon cards. After saying goodbye to our newly made friends, we arrived in the big city, where we did get lost a couple of times, sure, but also did some great discoveries, like apartments you can buy and renovate for yourself. Unfortunately, these are way too expensive for me, but I do think it's great that the game gives you the option. I also learned of a new evolution of Quillfish named Kablowfish, which is definitely something you don't want to run into at sea. Speaking of running into things, here's Geralt, who says that there's a problem right now. The city is on lockdown because one of the Giratina artifacts got stolen from the local museum, and we have to find the culprit and return the item here. They could be anywhere in this giant city, but Detective Zwiggo is on the case. But we did get some help of the local Pokemon. One of them was a cement Grimer that with his rock poison typing can lay down any road for you. He gave me a hint to head into the sewer system. That's where we found a regional Tangela, a steel electric type that pointed us to a Mockroach, a dark bug type that loves mocking people. But we quickly got on his good side and added him to the Dex total, which uncovered the location of the bandit that raided the museum. He was hiding down here all this time and wasn't going to give up easy. His name's Marcus, and he doesn't want to let anything slip until we beat him in a Pokemon battle. So I used my Dragolis's signal beam to instantly kill his Cacturn. Charizard then cleaned up the rest of his team by biting Kadabra and Vibrava and scorching away his Magneton. That's when he finally yields and explains that this was not an act of hate, because the artifact he stole was originally from his ancestors. Most of them perished when Giratina destroyed the temple in the desert, and the stone he reclaimed from the museum was excavated from the ruins of this temple. Now, as it turns out, Geralt struck a deal with the museum. His plan is to host tournaments at the top of Trident Tower here in the city, and he's going to try and use this stone as a selling point. He doesn't know if it was going to be used as a trophy or as a giveaway, but it doesn't sit right with him that such an important artifact of his people is completely neglected, and that's the reason why he stole it. We tell him that he should return it to Geralt and talk it out with him to see if they can maybe come up with a solution to this. So we go back together, and Geralt is immediately happy, as Marcus is a son of a colleague of mine, Olivia. She's also an Ego Council member, hence why he listened to his proposal in the first place, which allowed them to come to an agreement now. They're going to use the shard to embed it into a trophy. This trophy is only going to get used in the first edition of the tournament, and then it will return to the museum, where its story will be forever retold. A great solution that satisfied both parties, which means we're almost done with our duties in the city. But first, I evolve my Dragolis into its final form, the majestic golden Seragal. Kokipound hit the gym for a couple of months and now turned into his final form, Koki Smash. Marill also got an evolution into Azumarill, and then I headed to the local museum, which had a beautiful garden filled with statues and trainers. One of these trainers had the evolution of Sunflora named Sunflorid, which I just wanted to show off because it looked so cool. temple. On the other side of town, I found a trainer with a regional Ludicolo who was ready to cook you some food, but we weren't done there as we also found a regional form of Trubbish that's literally just a trash can, so we picked him up as well and headed out of the city. This path led me into the Dunestone Desert, where we not only captured a Marowak because it has a new evolution, but also dehydrated, eventually found the Oasis. That's where we fell into a quicksand pit and met up with the next council member. Her name is Olivia and she'll be taking up our gym challenge, but not before we take a tour of the entire Oasis together. I wanted to prepare before I took her on though, so I first evolved my garbage can into a big garbage can and also took out the old Spearow to turn it into Fearow. We then do our quick tour, which is really quick because the only real landmark here is the Kaio's temple that's now destroyed, so our battle gets started sooner than expected. Because she lives in a desert, she likes to run a sandstorm team and starts off with a Hippowdon. But when she sees the face of my Godfrogger, she swaps out into a Garchomp rather quickly. I'm not able to do much against the beast until Fearow takes it out with a high jump kick. Cookie Smash uses his Wood Hammer and Bullet Punches to take on Flygon and Hippowdon, but because of his sustained damage gets bested by Cacturne Sucker Punch. I then bring out Fearow again to use her high jump kicks to take on this Cacturne, but also Venusaur and Drapion, which crowns me winner of this battle as well as the Impact Badge. We take a quick scan of the temple and use our new Rock Smash ability to reach the Palkia Heights. Here we see Teal yet again, but she doesn't want a battle as her team just got wiped by some weird people in sci-fi gear. This must be a sign that Team Fate is near and is also trying to capture Palkia. So we rush on ahead and reach the peak where the caravan is busy fighting off all of the grunts. Unfortunately for us, they were already able to snag the Azure Flute and have gone ahead to summon Palkia. By the time we've beaten all the grunts and entered the temple ourselves, it's already too late. Here we see the leader of Team Fate, Yu, who says that they've already captured Palkia, but he also says that we should put an end to whatever little adventure Professor Thorn has asked us to go on, because we're dealing with forces beyond our understanding. Unfortunately, we're not strong enough to defeat him in a battle, so we let him go and completed a puzzle that resembled Palkia. This opened up the next door, which led us to an old ancient labyrinth guarded by statue Pokemon. These were named Gargon, and because they look like gargoyles, I decided to pick one of them up so it could join my forces. After this, we complete the labyrinth and find a chamber where Palkia is supposed to be summoned. This area is still surging with power, so we pick up a Koros shard and bring it back to Thorn. We relay everything to him about you and them stealing Palkia, but Thorn doesn't seem to know this person at all. However, this is very alarming, so we'll have to do something about Team Faith eventually. For now though, we just hand over our shard and Thorn says we need to go to Diamond Peak Town to reach the Dialga Temple. You and his cronies are probably also heading there, so we'll have to be incredibly cautious. However, Diamond Peak Town is on an island that's very remote and will need the HM for Surf in order to get there. Luckily for us, there's a boathouse south of Haydust Town where we might be able to get some help. So we hit the road again, find a new Pokemon named Mushling, which is a grass psychic type, and once we're done capturing it, we easily make our way to the boathouse, but we get sent over to the beach. That's where we met a new council member named Chad. He's a master of the ocean and would love to learn me how to surf if we beat him in a battle and grab his badge off of him. I would say this was a hard battle, but it was the exact opposite of that. After I set up 2 swords dances with Koki Smash, I one-shot or 2-shot his entire team, but he did have a very cool new Pokemon named Skullkraken, which is clearly based off the design of Shelder that's stuck on Slowbro's tail. Now that we have the title badge and the HM for Surf, we can finally move on as the seas float me to the Tidecliff Cave, where yes, I did end up killing a shiny Lapras. Yeah, that was kind of awkward, but let's just say that didn't happen. Oh look, all of a sudden my Pokemon evolve and we have a new evolution of Marowak. Its name is Theratwak and it's ready to protect its children. We also get our final evolution of Wardern, which is Dragoyle, and can I just say that these 2 designs are peak. Now that we can get back on the water, our travels lead us to a remote island that's inhabited by just one person. But we do see that he has a boat, so we tell him that we need to get to the Diamond Islands, and he agrees to take me, but only if we make a quick stop at the Suncrest Isle. So we agree and make a quick pit stop because he wanted to visit his old friend. He isn't in his house, however, so he wants us to go look for him. That's when we stumble onto Teal, who somehow also made her way over here, and she's ready for yet another battle against me, because because that's the only thing she does. She now has a Size Steed that gets one-shot by my Bone Sweep. Blastoise gets wiped out of the sky by my Stone Edge from Gargoyle. Furo uses her feet to kick her Snorlax out of here. Staraptor decides to take herself out, and Feraligatr uses Hydro Pumps to finish off the final 2 Pokemon. After the battle, we learn that her parents used to take her here when she was younger, but she couldn't really appreciate what was around here back then, like the Ish Temple that she wants us to check out with her now. Unfortunately, just when she says that, something happens at the temple, and we see that it's clearly those Team Fade Grunts again. They're up to no good and need to get shut down before they destroy this old property. Because Teal recognizes that we are the better trainer, she lets us in charge of taking these two down while she tries to keep my Pokemon healthy. That was quicker done than said, as this double battle was done within an instant. We did see a regional form of Blissey though, who looked a little bit too angry, and its temper could probably destroy this entire island if I didn't shut it down. Once I do so, they teleport out and we get a quick tour of the temple. We learn that hundreds of years ago, long before the Dunestone Temple was destroyed, an event was witnessed from the very cliffs outside of this cave. Off in the horizon, close to the coast of the mainland, a beam of intense light is said to have shot straight into the sky. What's more curious is that within the same day, 3 bright flashes had occurred at the various temples around Ego, preceding the light beam. It was almost as if the beam appeared at the midpoint of these 3 temples. Some of the villagers say that they saw Arceus emerge, or a ghostly figure resembling Arceus. Others have mentioned the sighting of a serpent that fills the sky. Regardless of which it was, months went by before any of the witnesses from this land were able to investigate further. Eventually, a family gathered the courage to go to the place of the beam, where they found an island with a ton of destroyed pillars. They then named this place the Ego Sanctum, but unfortunately they were never able to figure out what this beam of light was. That ends off this little folktale, which means we're able to go to the Diamond Islands with our boat guide. As we arrived there, we first had to go through Frost Ridge Tunnel, which was a breeze, so we could end up in Diamond Peak Town. We waste no time and go straight to Thorn's contact Irene, who's also the 5th and final council member, which we'll have to face in order to get her badge. When we eventually do, we will be able to use the HM for strength, but she doesn't want the battle to go down in town and tells us to come to the front of the Chronos Temple. After completing some ice puzzles, we reach it ourselves and learn that this is the place where Dialga is supposed to be summoned. They say that a couple hundred years ago, Giratina showed up and destroyed the temple in the desert, and in that exact moment, Dialga and Palkia came to the rescue. That's why the people of Diamond Peak keep Dialga in such a high regard. However, enough legendary nonsense, let's challenge Irene and get this last gym badge. Her Icy team might be able to freeze up a lot of opponents, but it has no effect on me and my Charizard. I start off by melting away our Abomasnow, but the incoming Pokemon was something I never expected, as it's the old legendary tale of Sasquatch, just with an N put in there. This Icy Giant Ape still got his ass burned though, but because of the hail damage, Charizard wasn't able to execute any more KOs. She also had a Jolly Bird, which I guess is the evolution of Delibird, but with a Sludge Bomb that got taken care of too. Grassquatch is also no problem, as it might be in a good mental state, but with a Sludge Bomb it does get poisoned and dies. Her Mamoswine gets washed away by a Hydro Pump, and Cryogonal isn't able to withstand a couple of stones from Dragoyle. We get our Vitality badge, but it's already too late. Yu and his goons have showed up and are getting ready to capture Dialga in front of our noses. We chase after them, but yet another Dialga puzzle delays us, and once we complete it, they've already reached the end of the labyrinth, where Yu tells us that we're once again up against forces we don't understand. He's already captured Dialga and Palkia, which is going to put a stop to Professor Thorn's plans. That's right, everything Team Fate has been doing is to try and stop Professor Thorn somehow, but I don't believe them at all. But this time he's going to try and wipe me off the map, so we can't help Thorn anymore by using Dialga and Palkia to try and take me down. That wasn't going to happen though, as my team was fully prepared for an encounter with these deities. I used Charizard's Dragon Pulses to take down Palkia, combined with my Fearo's high jump kicks. Feraligatr and Theratwak could then use their combined moves to finish off Dragoyle, Dialga, and the final Pokemon, Zwiggojr, without much trouble. This surprises you an incredible amount. There's no way he was going to lose against me with these god Pokemon by his side, right? Well, it just happened. Now that he knows this, he needs needs more power, so he's going after Giratina to complete his puzzle. He teleports out and we head back to Thorn to tell him what happened. After handing over the shard we picked up at the Chronos Temple, he installs it into the computer and asks us how our journey went. We explain everything to him, but Thorn says that it's all ludicrous because we have never been asked to capture the 3 legendary Pokemon, just to get these shards so we can go back home, which is still our main objective here, and that's what we're going to be able to do after Thorn gets his final shard from Giratina. But as we know, the temple where Giratina is normally summoned is no longer around, but with the 2 shards we have already collected, Thorn is able to send us back in time to the moment where Giratina was summoned and destroyed that temple, so that we can maybe grab a shard from before it happened. I'm not gonna lie, I'm getting very suspicious off of Thorn, but we have no choice but to go along with this plan and get sent back into the past. We're also wearing a special suit that protects us from anything and also lets us hear Thorn's instructions. We make our way over to the temple where the Giratina statue is still shining with all of its glory, but when we enter, we have to complete yet another puzzle. After this, we can easily reach the summoning chamber, but Yu is already here. We are too late. He has summoned Dialga and Palkia to subdue Giratina and captures it right in front of our eyes. Just when he's about to unleash all 3 of their attacks upon me, Thorn pulls me out because he doesn't want us to get hurt. He's glad to see that we're okay, but unfortunately we have not been able to retrieve a piece of the shards. But there is one last thing we could do to get this energy source. Remember that artifact that got stolen from the museum? Yeah, that's one of the shards we need. Unfortunately for us, it's locked behind glass when we go over to the museum, but we did learn that it was supposed to go into a trophy. And who was supposed to make this trophy? Geralt, who is now the owner of the Trident Tower tournament. After talking to him, he tells me that if we manage to win the tournament, we'll be able to hold the trophy for a couple of days and then we'll have to bring it back. Considering this is our only shot at getting back home, we decide to participate in the tournament, but first I buffed up my team. I evolved Grimer into Muck, Gloom into Mortossum, and Psycholite into Shrewmage. The tournament we enter has 4 rounds and is being broadcasted throughout the entire region, making it the biggest event ever. Our first contestant is Lucas, the kid that stole the gem in the first place, and without him this trophy would have not been as significant as it is right now, but that doesn't mean we're going to go easy on him. Not that we have to, because his team is absolute garbage. We start off by flamethrowing his Magnezone and Dragon Pulsing his Flygon. Firo then uses High Jump Kick to take on Dragoyle, Uzma the Lava Monster, as well as Cacturn. We then use a single crunch to take out the final Pokemon Alakazam, and Lucas is already defeated, meaning that we can move on to the second round. That's where we face an old friend of ours, Donnie, and I'm not gonna lie, I kind of forgot to deliver his package to his grandma. Oh well, I guess he has the opportunity to take revenge on me right now. But what I was more excited for was to see which Pokemon he was rocking. First off was a beautiful shiny Milotic, who should stick to beauty contest because Shrewmage drained all of its energy with Giga Drain. The Battle of the Fearos then broke out, but his purple one was no match. We also see a new evolution of Eevee, the Bug-type one, Lepetyon, but it wasn't on screen for too long as my mug Stone-edged it quickly. Flamethrower from Charizard took down a Golden Steelix, and the evolution of Raichu Gorochu also showed its face. After a Dragon Pulse or 2, it was no more, and Metagross died to some Bone Sweeps from my Theratwhack. Donnie might have had the most beautiful team in the region, but definitely not the strongest. Let's move on to round 3. Here we're face to face with Koba, the guy that was supposed to summon Palkia but totally screwed it up, which means his team is probably a pushover as well. And while it didn't start off great for me because I tried a Sleep Powder with my Mortossum, which got bounced back to me because of Azatu's Magic Bounce, it did start to go a bit better when Firo took down his Machamp with Brave Bird. Theratwhack took down an inferior ground type with Head Charge, and another High Jump Kick shot Hydreigon out of the sky. Muxstonage easily took care of his Charizard, and my own Charizard then finished off the last 2 Pokemon by burning them down. This lets us through into the finals where we finally face our friend that helped us right at the beginning. It's of course Lucy, but we've never faced off against her in a battle, but as it turns out she's one of the strongest trainers on this island, and I'm ready for whatever she throws at me. so let's get to it. Her lead Pokemon is something we had never seen before, the evolution of Noctowl Grimfowl. This bird is a beast that's capable of taking down even my strongest dragons. But before that, I could take out a chunk of his health, which allowed me to swap out into my big boy, who could then clean it up easily. But her incoming Pokemon is an absolute threat to me. The evolution of Dunsparce Questparce, as it's able to shake the ground and wipe the floor with my muck easily. I tried to take it down with Shroomish instead, but that didn't work because I got flinched 2 times in a row. By the time my Terra Thwack came out, it was already too late. She swaps out into Volcarona, who does get clobbered to death easily, just like Blaziken straight after. Questparce comes out again, and this is a matchup of the ages, as we crash move after move into each other and both faint on the same turn. Her remaining 2 team members were a Miss Magius and Dragonite. After I brought in my Mortossum, I set up 1 Quiver Dance and took both of them out with Hexes and Sludge Waves, giving me the win against our longest lasting friend and also getting to win the tournament in its entirety and claiming the trophy. This also cements us as the very first Hall of Fame champion, but we don't have a lot of time to enjoy the festivities ourselves, as we need to bring this trophy to Thorn as fast as possible. He's delighted to see that we have won the tournament and gotten him the last shard, so we head down to his lab to remove the stone from the trophy and insert it into the machine. While the machine is calibrating my origin point to send me back to it, we have to wait a couple of minutes. Once those minutes are done, eventually he's going to turn me into a computer program, which is going to allow me to shrink all of the information around me so we can get sent back to our own timeline. So we step into the machine and get digitalized. The professor then wants us to upgrade this machine so we can get sent home, and the way we do that is with a special Porygon to link all the nodes together so everything will be in place. After all of that is done, the professor pulls me out and we get the Pokemon Porygon X, which is just a more powerful and kind of the ultimate version of a Porygon. Once we arrive back in the lab, Thorn says that the machine is fully calibrated to send us back home now, so whenever we want, we can step into it. But he does have something to get off his chest. With all of the power that we've collected from Palkia, Dialga, and Giratina, we have essentially harnessed the power to travel through infinite realities. So he wants me to think about the opportunities we have here. We would be able to step foot into any alternate timeline, place, or dimension and learn from them, which would give us eternal knowledge of everything, and the wonders and achievements we could witness could solve an incredible amount of mysteries. But the professor realizes from my face that this is nothing I want a part of. I just want to be sent home. So he says that it's been a pleasure to work with me, because otherwise he never would have been able to even create this machine, and because we've gone through all of this, it's finally time that we deserve to go home. But just when he's about to put in the right destination, we hear a big bang from outside. This causes the entire power system to go down, which forces us to get out of here to see what's going on. When we finally make it though, we see a sight that's absolutely horrifying to witness. Yu has unleashed the incredible power of the creation trio to try and destroy the lab. He says that he thought that capturing the deities would have put an end to Thorn's schemes, but he should have expected him to have another plan. He should have known better than to think he could outsmart Professor Thorn. He told me to stay out of this. He told me to stop working with him. He didn't want me to get involved because his entire mission was to stop Thorn from using me as a means to his end goal. Thorn then steps outside and says,
"Well, this all looks very pleasant. And who might we have here?"
To which Yu answers,
You know exactly who I am, and at this point, I'm sure the kid does too.
Yu says that Thorn is taking advantage of me because of my amnesia so that we can help him accomplish something more nefarious than we could ever dream of. He was using me all this time to gather the resources he needs to create a machine that will distort time and space. Yu is from a future in which he succeeds by capturing these 3 deities to create said machine, and the only reason why he knows this is because it happened to him as well, as he's me but from a distant future. He has seen what Thorn is capable of while hopping through different times and realities, causing chaos without any regard for the collateral he leaves behind. He needs to be stopped stopped here and now, so this can never happen again. But Thorn then finally answers by saying,
To be fair, you paint me in a very negative light. It's not like I'm jumping through realities maliciously, purposely disrupting people's lives. I was never manipulating Zwiggo, it just so happened that both of our end goals were aligned. Also, I absolutely do care about the ripple effects that I cause. I just see them as too inconsequential to affect my overall pursuit of knowledge. Otherwise, everything else sounds pretty accurate.
Yu answers by saying,
That's why I have to take you down so I can protect all the other multiverses from your wrath.
Thorn says that that will be impossible because the very fact that he's here is proof that he's already succeeded. How else did he know to collect the Arcanium shards instead of the deities? Why else did he send back Zwiggo back to 100 years ago instead of to just before they excavated the Chaos Shard? It was also he could taunt future me, because he knew the instant he sent his team Fade Grunts to sabotage the first solar panel. Oh, and all of those team Fade Grunts are my friend Teal that has been pulled out of different realities to fight for his cause. So in that regard, he definitely doesn't have a lot of moral high ground to stand on. Anyway, the real reason why Thorn knows all of this is because this has happened a dozen times before, as this is definitely not the first Zwiggo to try and stop him. Because the moment the first Professor Thorn found the way to infinite realities, he already won. He can now go around to different universes to tell different versions of him how to stop me, so that nothing he's ever worked for gets compromised. So he's going to keep walking into other universes, ruining other people's lives, because in the grand scale of things, in the matter of infinity, their lives do not matter at all. But what Zwiggo fails to understand is that when there are an infinite number of realities, anything that could happen has already happened or will happen. So any action we take is inconsequential, insignificant, and practically non-existent. He's also spent time to go around different universes to spend time with his younger selves to teach them stuff he wished he'd knew earlier. That way he has created so many alternate versions that are all working to the same goal, to study and explore the infinite multiverse. And while some of them might turn against him and rebel, he has never lost up until this moment. But future me says that there is a first time for everything. So he asks me to stop Thorn once and for all. And here we get the choice to either battle myself or Thorn, depending on who I want to side with. And because Thorn definitely seems like the villain here with ruining so many people's lives, I'm going to be battling him. He says that this was a very poor choice because he basically has access through his PC to any Pokemon he's caught in any reality. This gives him access to his secret weapon, the creator of all the multiverses, Arceus. The one Pokemon above all, the creator of even Arceus and the cosmic deities. Nothing has been able to stop this beast, but we are eye to eye with it now, as Thorn unleashes its devastating energy upon me. And while he might have been able to one-shot my first two Pokemon, Fraligator was able to do some Sludge Bomb damage as well as a Flash Flood. I hit one more head charge with my Theratwag and bring in Seregal, who uses Glare to paralyze the beast. This allows me to attack again, and with a single outrage, the rest of his HP bar is gone and Arceus is defeated. Even though he lost, he says it doesn't matter because future me has already destroyed our lab and we only have one more thing to do if we want to get home. And that's for Arceus to reset this reality, and in its place will be a new reality devoid of any more outside interference. He ends off his sentence by saying, I hope this is the last time I have to do this, and then the universe gets reset. Everything around us has disappeared and we're just eye to eye with Thor now. He says this.
Just so you know, Zwiggo, it was always my mission to send you back home. The only reason it got so seemingly out of hand back there was because it had to. It had to be something extravagant, a big climactic send-off, a satisfying conclusion to your grand adventure. But it wasn't satisfying at all, was it? As there are still places unexplored, stones unturned. But such is the nature of dreams, I suppose. There's always more to dreams that we just can't seem to reach. If only we we could just stay asleep, right? But no, we've gone too far just to give up now. It's finally time for us to go. Don't you get it, Zwiggo? None of this has been real, just a figment of our brain that conjured up a fantasy world that brings us a sense of comfort. A way for us to cope with the reality we fear waking back up to. All just an internal psychological struggle against your own thoughts. I knew you weren't put here because of Celebi's time warp and mischief. We were always just trying to prolong the dream, but the dream is over. Our journey is done. It's time to wake up, Zwiggo.
At that point in time, we finally wake up and see that we're actually in a hospital bed, which means we've probably been in a coma for several weeks or maybe even months. However, when you step out of your bed, there's still a choice for you to be made. You can either go and run to the end of the hallway where you can see your parents to go home, or you can crawl back into bed to go back to the dream universe where everything seemed so much better than actual reality. This choice definitely made me appreciate my dreams more because they are in fact a different reality where you can go to chill out from your regular stressed out days. But I wouldn't say that I would like to stay in my dreams in real life though, as you can mostly still shape your own reality to your own will if you want and decide to put in the time and effort. But for the sake of the Pokemon game and because I wanted to see what the post-game had to offer, I crawled back in bed to see what Professor Thorn's new universe had to offer me. You wake up again in that familiar house from the beginning of the game, and there is another note on the table. It's from Thorn, who says,
Zwiggo, if you're reading this, that means we have more work to do. Come back to the lab ASAP.
But because we're in a different dream realm now, our entire Pokemon party is wiped and we have to go back to Wormwood to pick up the other two starters. With these, we can make our way back to Professor Thorn's lab, which is now totally restored. He says that the fact that I'm here means that his mission failed. You see, he has known for a very long time that all of this was just playing around in his head, as his journey started off exactly as ours, waking up in Genesis Forest, going to Hades Town, picking up his starter Pokemon, and so on and so forth. Except there was no Professor Thorn. This hilltop used to be barren. He then went on adventures with Dialga, Palkia, Giratina, and eventually started onto the path of breaking open the multiverse. Then, as he was working with one of his other selves in another universe, they went too far and created too many timelines. That's where they ran into the god Arceus, a Pokemon that can exist in every universe but prefers to stay in the void around them, where it lays eggs, and from those eggs come new universes and an Arceus to go with it. Professor Thorn then battled this Arceus but eventually lost, causing Arceus to reset the universes, and in that moment Thorn could hear his parents shouting to him to wake up. But when he woke up, he was back in Genesis Forest, and then he realized, why would I wake up from this reality if I can just come back here and do whatever I want? So he stayed here for years, talking to the same people, reliving the same adventures, fighting Arceus multiple times and existing in infinite timelines. But one day he finally had enough of it all. He had seen enough of the Ego region and wanted to wake up again to see his parents. Unfortunately, the only way he thought he could do this was with my help. He hoped that the ending to our last battle with the climatic ending would be enough to both shake me and him out of our deep sleep. But because we chose to come back again, I guess the only thing that's left to do is for us to explore the multiverse some more. So he urges me to go back to the basement and step into the machine to see all of the upgrades that he's done. This whole machine has now become a virtual briefing room, where he can enlighten us with new missions to complete in different universes. There are an incredible amount of missions for us to explore, but the first one is a special egg that somehow appeared here. Thorn has no idea what it is and urges us to take it so that we can hatch it to see what it is. We also have an Arceus mission, but we cannot start this one yet. First, we need to distort time enough by going to 3 different dimensions, and then we need to pick up the Azure Flute, get all 3 of the deities, so that we eventually disrupt this universe enough for Arceus to be summoned. So we waste no time and get straight into doing that. Our first mission is in the Kanto region. Here we're supposed to go to Palatown town in a different dimension and steal all 3 starter Pokemon before the legendary trainer Red can even start his journey. This will ensure that he gets Pikachu as his starter and we get some nice Cantonian forms as a reward out of it. This was something that was completed in a couple of minutes, and with its completion we also have the opportunity to challenge every single Kanto gym leader somewhere across the island because they have also been transported here. Our next mission also played out in Kanto. We have to go steal a Master Ball just before Giovanni can get his hands on it. This will give Thorn a blueprint that he can use for his own Master Ball creations, so we waste no time and get sent to the second dimension, where we head into Silphco and challenge Giovanni right at the top. After taking him down, the director gives me a Master Ball as a reward, as he doesn't want Giovanni to get his hands on it. We then return to our own universe to hand over the plans to Thorn. The mission after this requires us to get the red shards. These are only obtainable after encountering the lake spirits Azelf, Mesprit, and Yuxi, but are vital in the creation of the Arc Ball, the only Pokeball able to contain the legendary god that is Arceus. So he wants me to go and find the lake spirits somewhere across the region. So I started searching around the region and got distracted a couple of times by a wishing well that ended up giving me a very powerful Pokemon named Luck Pup after I threw $7,777 into it. After evolving it into Lucagon, I also evolved both of my new Cantonian starters into their final forms and met up with Howlett in front of the mines. He says that his friend Koba went in here a couple of days ago but hasn't come out since, and wants us to check it out to see if we can rescue him. We comply, but as we try to go further into the mines, a strange force starts to push me back, which means we're not supposed to go here yet, so I went back in search of the Lake Guardians, finding them in the middle of a lake. Once their interactions were done, I easily picked up the red shards and brought them back to Thorn to create the Arc Ball for me. But the time to summon Arceus was not upon us yet, as I had to try and create more universes. So instead, I ran around, which ended up hatching that egg we found in the computer, and this became a Botamon, one of the characters in the legendary show Digimon, a show that I personally never watched, but I know the creator of this game absolutely loves it, and you'll know why a little bit later. We easily evolved it into Pagamon without much effort, and went to search for the legendary Pokemon Cresselia. After beating it up, we picked up his Lunar Wing, which finally granted us access into the other parts of the mine, which turned out to be an entire maze. No wonder Koba got lost here for multiple days. After completing this maze, however, we meet him at the very end. He doesn't know where he is and is incredibly scared because he has come eye to eye with the mythical Pokemon Darkrai. Once it shows up, he screams and runs for his life while we are left behind to face it. I capture it with my Master Ball and head back to town, where Koba thanks me for saving him. He knows the Azure Flute needs to be in a capable trainer's hands, and after seeing me handle that situation so well, he decides to hand it over to me, giving us another piece of the puzzle to summon Arceus. We then talk to a lady inside of this town to learn all 3 tunes of Ages, Currents, and Echoes, so we can get to summoning Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina. So that's what we do next. We go to all 3 of their temples, play their favorite songs, they show up, and we defeat them, or capture them. But this is still not enough to summon the legendary beast. We need to step foot in one more alternate dimension, and how are we going to unlock that? Well, you have to beat the main tournament on a harder difficulty each time you want to unlock a new dimension. So we win our second Trident tournament against the legendary trainer Red, and go back to Thorn to see that a GS Ball mission has been unlocked. We need to try and get this ball from another Johto dimension to see what its properties are. This required us to climb an entire bell tower, where we found it all the way at the top, and straight after we also had to defeat the legendary Pokemon Ho-Oh before we got transferred back, just to find out that the GS Ball is not good for capturing Pokemon and basically does nothing except for summoning Celebi. But this entire journey finally unlocked the ability for me to summon the legendary God Snake. So we went to his island in the middle of the sea and played his special song on my Azure Flute. His shadow then filled the entire land as he came out from the sky, ready to submit to my will. And after using my special Arc Ball on it, I trapped him for eternity, and he is now under my command. But this wasn't the last mission on our to-do list. honest, a lot more opened up after this. Because we captured Arceus, we get another opportunity at capturing the actual god Arceus. Thorn transports us to a birthplace of a universe where Arceus hatches out of an egg, and we get the immediate chance at capturing it. With him also under my command, the next missions would become very easy. But this next one was quite tedious to do. You basically have to see every single form of Unown so you can unlock another very special Pokemon. These Unowns are only seen in the 3 legendary temples, so after I went back to them and checked out every single letter of the alphabet, I went back to the spot where we summoned Arceus, and this time a different event started happening. As the multiverse opened itself up to me and all the Unowns started surrounding me, we saw a shadowy figure coming down from the sky yet again. Only this time it wasn't Arceus. The silhouette looked more like an Arceus, but it wasn't quite that either. This Pokemon is still kind of a mystery, but its name is Oculus, and it's made up of a ton of Unowns and cosmic energy. We capture it as well and learn that this guy exists as an omniscient, universal force that uses Unown to observe life across the entire universe. So I guess you could kind of see him as the Watcher from Marvel, as he likes to observe but rarely interferes. With it, we went back to the lab and saw that there was another anomaly happening here. Apparently, it's related to the Digimon egg we hatched earlier. This has caused some machines to absolutely go bonkers and portals to open up throughout the region, and Professor Thorn wants us to shut these down. So that's what we do. We fix some computers with our Porygon and fight some more Digimon like Motimon who come out of these portals. Once it's all done and taken care of, all the multiverses have been explored, so we have to go back to the tournament to unlock more. This time we defeat Teal in the final, which unlocks the portal of the Weather Trio, Kyogre, Rayquaza, and Groudon. Thorn wants us to battle all 3 of these so we can gather data on them, so we comply and get transported into the middle of Hoenn. First going to a volcano to challenge Groudon, traversing some whirlpools to eventually make it to the god of the ocean Kyogre, and hiking up to a mountain peak to challenge Rayquaza. After all that is done, we get transported back and see that something new has entered the region, a Reggie trio, and Thorn wants us to go and check it out again, so we complete the Reggie puzzle, battle all 3 of them, and report back with the information. This unlocks the next universe where we have to save one of our own satellites from a Deoxys attack. Once the alien is neutralized, we win a couple more tournaments to unlock an alternate version of our lab where a rebelling Thorn used to do research to try and take our Thorn down. He was able to subdue him easily though, but wants us to check out what he was working on. The first thing we notice is that this lab looks a little different from what we're used to, but when we head into the basement, we get an encounter with Genesect. Once we squash this mechanical bug, we see that there was a lot more going on. Tubes that were filled with Pokemon like Mewtwo and Deoxys were being experimented on, but the main thing he was working on was inside of a tube that was broken. Unfortunately, there was no trace left of this Pokemon, so Thorn opens up a portal upstairs to try and pull us back. But as we try to go upstairs, we get stopped by a force, and when we look behind us, a weird experiment Pokemon shows up that turns out to be the legendary Mew 3. Once we capture it, we learn that this was made to try and combat the powers of Arceus, and Thorn is now really happy that its power is in my hands. This also opens up the next mission, which is absolutely crazy. Get ready for this, because we get sent to an entire different franchise, the world of Digimon. Our team is wiped, we have no Pokemon on us, and after looking around for a little bit, we meet with an old Digimon named Gigimon. He says that we have arrived in the digital world and says that my arrival is supposed to fulfill some kind of prophecy. So he takes me to the Digimon camp, which is kind of like a hub where you'll be able to do everything from healing your Digimon up to getting their stats up and even getting them out of your PC. This is also where we get our first partner Digimon, Agumon, who is going to help us to fulfill this prophecy. After doing our first couple of battles against some Kunemons, we learn that our goal is to reach Hard Drive Cave, where we'll be able to harness great power. On our way over there, Agumon evolves into Tyrannomon, making him way stronger, and when we eventually arrive at Hard Drive Cave, we see that the entrance is sealed off. Luckily, Jujimon knows a Digimon in Gear Grind Desert desert that will be able to get through this obstacle easily for us. So off to Gear Grind Desert I go, but our path gets blocked by an ogre of some kind. He's only going to let me pass if we bring him a blue apple, so we go to the other side of the forest to pick one up, go back to give it to him, and he just gets angry and starts attacking me. My Tyrannomon then uses some pepper breaths to take it out, and we finally get access to our desert. That's where we find Drimogamon, a guy with a giant drill on his head, who says he's going to head to the entrance now. When we arrive ourselves, the entire blockade is gone and we can enter the cave. That's where Digimon tells us that this cave is the heart of the island, with all of the energy being harnessed here. So we go through it together and find the entire energy source. Unfortunately, not enough energy has been gathered to activate it. We first need to battle a ton more legendary, regular, and common Digimons before it will reveal its power. So we go on a massacre, destroying everything this island has to offer, and come back here to see what it's all about. That's when Digimon said that he's been lying to me and reveals himself as yet another alternate version of my future self. Yet another guy trying to take down Thorn and his plans. As you see, everything here is made up out of code, even he himself. With that, he was going to try and infect the computer of Thorn to try and take him down, but this time we're not going to go along with his plan because we already know what Thorn is up to and we're fully supporting it at this point. So we take him and his machine Draymon out to end our Digimon adventure and get sent back to Thorn himself. He's going to keep this portal open in case we want to study these Digimon some more, so we can return there anytime we want. But there was one more portal for us to unlock, and for that we had to defeat the Master Tournament, which was incredibly easy with Oculus and Mew 3 by my side. This opens up the last and most sinister portal. This is a dimension that serves as a prison. Thorn put everybody here that he thought was a threat to him or their universe, and he wants me to go and clean all of them up. Because we have literal gods by our side and have overcome every single challenge, this should be no problem for us. But the thing is that the level cap has now increased to level 130, which makes these trainers we're about to face incredibly strong. These trainers consisted out of every single evil team boss up until Generation 5, and so we were easily able to defeat Giovanni, Archer, Maxi and Archie, but also Cyrus and Getsis. Once they all bit the dust, it started to get interesting, as we faced a different version of Thorn that was deemed too dangerous to be left in a regular universe. He tells us that we are also dangerous, otherwise Thorn would have never sent me to this universe in the first place, which means we might be trapped here forever if we don't beat up all of these next opponents. So we start out by battling him, and he has an absolute crack team, starting off with a Deoxys defense form who only dies after a Swords Dance boosted Woodhammer from Koki Smash. His next Pokemon was unfortunately a Yveltal that was able to one-shot me with an Oblivion Wing, so I wasn't going to sweep. But I had Firo in the back who could kick it out of the air with some more high jumps. Deoxys speed overpowered my Serigol with Psycho Boost, but we managed to get him down to his Focus Sash, so Firo could come in and lay down the ambush. He then sent out an Arceus of his own and started using the amazing move Big Bang. Luckily, my Oculus was prepared for this and tanked multiple of them, and was even able to win this fight by spamming Cosmic Rays. With his strongest Pokemon down, 2 more remained. First up was Darkrai. Another Cosmic Ray, Ambush, and Life Orb damage later, and he was down too. Our final opponent was a Deoxys attack form that got Shadow Balled by my Mew 3, and just like that, we have defeated the evil version of Thorn. But believe it or not, this was not our final opponent. When we start walking among the stars, we meet another man by the name of Atomic Reactor. He's the creator of Pokemon Infinity, and you might be wondering, why is he the final villain? Well, he's basically done the most harm, as his impact is way more real than any of the other villains around here. In releasing this game, he's been able to take 32 hours and 22 minutes out of my life, which to me is absolutely no problem because I loved playing through this game, but it is indeed time I will never get back. He says that his game only serves as a minor distraction from the things in your life, but let's see if the time that we spent here is enough to take down the architect of this world. He of course starts off with the god of Pokemon Arceus, so I set up Swords Dances again with Koki Smash and kill it with Draymon. Flame Punch. His next Pokemon, Rayquaza, dies to 2 bullet punches and leaves me with 1 HP after using extreme speeds. His next Pokemon, Ho-Oh, ends up going into a stalemate with my Oculus as they both go down on the same turn. His next Pokemon is not a Pokemon at all, it's the Digimon War Greymon that I don't even know the typing of. It's easily able to overpower my Mew 3, but Charizard in the end comes in clutch and uses flamethrowers. This lets him bring out his own Arceus, who takes me down with a big bang. My last 2 Pokemon also don't stand a single chance to him, so we have to use some revives to revive Oculus to bring the fight up to an even level again. Not even he was able to take him out, but with a revive on Mew 3, we were eventually able to come out on top with Shadow Balls. His last Pokemon is also an Oculus of himself, so we revive more of our Pokemon, and this battle ends off Oculus versus Oculus, as both of them yet again go down in the same turn. With a little bit of revive and full restore cheese, we managed to defeat the creator of this game. This leaves him impressed because we have put a ton of personal time into one of his projects, and he does also genuinely hope that we've enjoyed our time we've put into this. I'd personally say I absolutely did. This game was amazing and has so many awesome storylines and Fakemon that I cannot urge you enough to try it out for yourself. All of this concludes our business in the masterpiece that was Pokemon Infinity. And what did we learn from this experience? That you should enjoy your dreams, but maybe not too much. Otherwise, you might never escape them.